Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, at least most of the time.
Sprouse.
She's Ann Sprouse, and we're back to talk the Final Dossier, Part 2. So hope you enjoyed Part 1. For those of you who are kind enough to download and listen to Part 1, we really appreciate you for doing so.
You.
But here in episode 26, well, we're going to pick up where we left off because, gosh darn it, we had way too much to talk about.
There's a lot going on, and things are about to get weird.
Yeah, so if you're a little depressed after part 1 of the fates of some of our favorite characters, well, strap yourselves in, kids, because we're going for a ride.
Yes, it's still going to be a little depressing, but it's going to be a little depressing. Then it's going to get really depressing.
Yeah.
Then it's going to get amazing.
Yeah.
And it's going to get weird.
Yes.
So.
Let's get weird. So, all right. So obviously we're going to finish with the Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier, the second of the Mark Frost books.
Yes.
By Flatiron Books. And so let's pick up where we left off. If you remember, we were talking about a certain Wyndham Earl the last time.
We were, but can I add a correction from last week?
Please do.
I was listening to our episode, which I do, to see how I sound and see if I said anything stupid that I would have to come back and retract.
No, that's me. I'm the one who usually says something stupid. But
well, we were talking about Audrey Horne last time and what happened with her and how we're not really sure what happened with her. And I was listening to what we were talking about, and I had said that when she's yelling at Charlie and she says it's like Ghostwood in here.
Right.
My comment was maybe to her, Ghostwood means betrayal because of what her father did after she blew up in the explosion.
Right.
Now I'm thinking, after listening to it again, I'm thinking maybe that's a metaphor for a prison and being trapped.
Ooh.
Because Ghostwood is a prison. Well, it was.
Yeah. Part of it was sold off by Ben Horne, Shakes Fist.
Benjamin!
To make the, that Ghostwood Correctional Facility or whatever it was.
Yeah. So maybe she's being more literal than figurative in this sense. That it's like Ghostwood in the sense that I am trapped here in this prison.
So...
made the
prison? So is the private facility where she's being held the prison?
I don't even know if it's that one-to-one a comparison for her. Just the idea.
You just think it's a metaphor for her state of mind?
I think it's still a metaphor, but I think it's more of a literal metaphor than it is a comparison to feeling betrayed by her father. I think it might be that she's actually referring to being in a prison of some sort.
Right.
So.
Well, as we'll talk about, Audrey's had some hard times.
Yes.
So we'll get into those. But, all right, so Wyndham Earl.
Yes.
All right, so we kind of went through a little bit of, we talked about how he had shot Leo Johnson and some of the events that we saw during the original series involving Wyndham Earl.
Right. Right.
But so we get a little bit more background here in the Wyndham Earl chapter of the dossier, the case file, I should say. So we find out that Wyndham was a child prodigy.
Again, a child prodigy who goes a little bit funny in the head.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like Gersten. Yeah.
Like Gersten.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much more deadly than Gersten. So.
Yeah. So apparently women and child prodigies do not do well in Twin Peaks.
No.
No. So apparently so his first assignment for the FBI was in the mid-'60s, acting as a liaison and a security officer between the FBI and, guess what? Project Blue Book.
Project Blue Book.
Yeah. So remember what Major Briggs was working on? UFOs, and also a certain Douglas Milford.
Douglas Milford, exactly. So it seems that there is a more intricate connection between Project Blue Book and Project Blue Rose and the Blue Rose Task Force than we ever really knew. So,
well, I'd like to think that Blue Rose, which I'm wearing my Blue Rose Task Force T-shirt today.
Nice. Doesn't get any bluer.
Doesn't get any bluer.
Where did you get that? I need one of those.
Blue Rose. It doesn't get any bluer.
So, I got that at the Showtime store.
Oh, okay.
Well,
cool.
actually, Lori got it for me as a Christmas gift, along with my Roadhouse T-shirt. So that was kind of nice.
Good job, Lori.
Yeah. Well, I put it on my Christmas list. I was like, okay, here's the website link. Here's where you can find it. Subtle. Yeah.
Good job.
So I would really, really like that. So yeah. So
Good
yeah,
job,
I got my Blue Rose T-shirt. So, and I didn't have to go through all the crap that Tammy went through to join it. Go figure. So yeah, I'd like to think that Blue Rose Task Force spun out of, and we kind of got that implied, I think, or inferred.
Right, because Wyndham Earle was also part of the Blue Rose Task Force.
So it just kind of like evolved and spun off into its own separate entity.
Yes.
Bureaucracy. And so we find out here also that in 1973, Wyndham hooked up with Caroline because he met her while serving as an FBI investigator during the Watergate hearing.
Exactly. She was working for Chief Prosecutor Samuel Dash, and they married in August of 74, just before August 10th, the day after Nixon resigned.
Right.
So they had their own little celebration as the rest of the country.
What a way to consummate your marriage after the Watergate hearings were concluded.
Well,
Nixon resigned.
If you're both working for the investigation.
That's true. It's like, well, the investigation's over. He's resigned. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Then we find out in the early 80s, there was a potential serial killer, but hey, it's probably Wyndham Earle, right?
That's what I'm thinking too, that if Wyndham Earle can't catch him, it probably is him.
Yeah.
So.
And that's kind of what was hinted on during the original series, if I recall correctly. Apparently that serial killer is the one that was responsible for bringing Cooper to the Pittsburgh office for his first field assignment.
Right. And that's what brought him to Pittsburgh, and that's where he met Wyndham Earle and his wife at a Christmas party, and they were both very attracted to each other. And if he hadn't had to stay in Pittsburgh, probably nothing would have happened. But he was there, she was there, it was her hometown, so.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I thought was really interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That was all I was saying. One thing led to another. We're all adults here. We all know what happens.
So one of the things I thought was interesting was that apparently Wyndham Earle was kind of like clued in to Cooper and Caroline's mutual attraction probably before they were. And he was apparently just so obsessed with this, he tried to force them together to make it happen. Right.
He was very... I think Cooper probably learned a lot of his tricks of reading human behavior from Wyndham Earle.
Right.
Because I think Wyndham Earle, you know how Cooper would say, "How long have you been in love with so and so?" What do you? Oh,
you're doing the whole Sherlock Holmes thing of reading body language and expressions and reactions and whatnot. Yeah.
I think Cooper probably learned a lot from Wyndham Earle. So Wyndham Earle was getting, like we said, he was already a budding serial killer, and he was getting more and more down his own rabbit hole. He was going crazier and crazier, and he was trying to push them together to sort of make things happen, and almost in a way to make his suspicions real.
Like he was trying to create his own self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, apparently this all culminated in a weekend where Cooper and Caroline became lovers.
Yes.
And shortly after that, Cooper figures out that, hey, Earle's the serial killer.
And Caroline had figured that out too. Being
Right.
married to him, she had figured that out, and
And
she's
I was glad to see that, because I was glad that Caroline wasn't just so naive about everything.
no, I think she was, and I think probably part of why she was with Cooper is she was terrified, rightfully so. At this point, she's a partner in her law firm. She's an attorney, so she's not an unobservant person. So she's going to figure things out as well. So unfortunately, Cooper and Caroline have that one night together, and that's when Windermere kind of busts in on them, and that's when he kills Caroline.
This whole thing is something I would love to see in a spin-off series.
That would be interesting.
I would love to get this period and see it.
Part of me would love to see that, but then there's part of me that doesn't want to see anybody but Kyle MacLachlan be Agent Dale Cooper.
I get that. It's hard to see anybody in that role because he just owns that role.
He does. Like, I didn't particularly mind when what's his name was young Indiana Jones, but I don't know if I'd want to see a young Agent Cooper.
Right.
So.
Apparently, I guess her death is what resulted in Gordon Cole meeting Cooper.
Yes.
So we kind of get the explanation of how Gordon got to know Cooper, which was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out 10 years later, Wyndham Earle escapes from a maximum security facility and escapes to the Los Angeles Underground. If you have a problem, and if anybody can help, or nobody else can help, and you can find him, maybe you can hire Wyndham Earle. Dun 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
The E-Team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that. I just goes like, oh, it's the A-Team. So that was kind of funny, but not so much that he, this crazy serial killer escapes, but hey, just amused me. So anything else about Wyndham Earle this segment before we move on?
Well, I think it's interesting. There are a couple of comments that Tammy makes about Diane and about Cooper.
Okay.
And I think the comments that Tammy makes about Diane are more Mark Frost comments about the Cooper, My Life, My Tapes book.
Okay.
Because it says that it's safe to say that Diane's motivations for doing so at this point are well known to us and cannot be considered consistently reliable source because the tapes have been so heavily edited and redacted. So when we do read Cooper or listen to Cooper's tapes, they are redacted by Diane. And so I'm thinking that Mark Frost is like, yeah, that wasn't the greatest account, that there was nowhere near the full Agent Cooper story, but there's a reason why.
Right. So he figured out how to make it work.
He figured out how to make it work and how to make it still canonical, even though he might have done something different back in the day. And I don't know if back in the day we were as interested in backstory as we are now, because I think it took 25 years of obsessing over this show for us to know how much we wanted more backstory and how much we wanted more information on Cooper's childhood and how much we want, and like what we're saying right now, oh, I'd love a spin-off of that, or a book that's just about these characters, or as many alternate endings as we can see, that kind of thing.
Well, I think there was some of that, because we obviously had that fascination with what's in Laura Palmer's diary.
Mm-hmm. We did.
And there were people like me and you that went out and got the Cooper My Life, My Tapes book and the Diane tapes, the actual audio cassette.
Right.
The tapes of Agent Cooper.
I think though that we were inclined to be that way about anything at the time anyway, but I think 25 years grew more people like us.
Yeah. Well, it's just there was just so little beyond the 2 seasons,
right?
And then we got the movie Fire Walk with Me, but there's just this hunger for more information,
and I think after 25 years, that hunger has just grown and grown and grown, and more people.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point. Yeah, I mean, Twin Peaks novel like this is, like being sold in Barnes and Noble, so that everybody can just go to their local fiction section and pick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of cool.
Well, and I think the interesting thing that Tammy says here about Cooper is how this made Cooper into the Cooper we know today. And this is what made Cooper fall so hard for Annie. And Cooper, we talked last time about Cooper having the white knight syndrome, so there probably would have been some inclination to save her in the first place. But I think a lot of his motivation behind Annie was driven by his guilt over Caroline.
Yeah, and I think some of that was played out in the final episode.
I think so too.
Well, because remember we saw, like, Annie and Caroline switching places in the Black Lodge.
Exactly, which is why it's interesting that Tammy brings it up, because Tammy would not have seen that. She wouldn't have known that. She wouldn't have seen any of that kind of stuff. She wouldn't have seen, she has and we'll see here in a little bit that she has the records of Annie being admitted to the hospital, but not necessarily being in a different dress and things like that.
No, she doesn't have the full story, obviously.
Yeah.
We know more than Tammy does.
Right.
In this case.
And once again, I think I'm just crazy because there's nothing in here about Caroline having been blind. So no, I don't know where I picked that up along the line. I don't know what.
You know what I think it is? I think it's because she had those contacts, the opaque contacts in the Black Lodge.
Yeah, but I have this memory of reading something that was that. So maybe I remember reading somebody pontificating about it like I did. I don't know, because my memory
maybe it's like a fanzine or something.
Something, I don't know, because like I said, I have a memory. It's not a memory of the show. It's a memory of reading something.
Okay.
So, but I was realizing today that I'm actually a lot older than I realized.
Join the club.
Yeah. So I could just be forgetting that. So anyway, I thought those were astute observations on Tammy's part, and an interesting storytelling mechanism on Mark Frost's part.
Yeah, that's the one thing I found interesting about this back half of the book, is that Tammy starts to making more and more personal observations about things.
And
in the case files.
In the case files, she's making more and more personal observations. And when she does talk about Cooper, there's a certain reverence there, and an understanding that Cooper is a good man and he's very special, and he's specifically very special to Gordon Cole.
Right.
So even there's a bit where she's like, "Am I being too harsh on Agent Cooper?" She is
a little critical, because she does kind of call him out on having the white knight syndrome. And how it's kind of affected his I don't want to say his relationships, but just his actions, I guess.
I don't know if she was necessarily critical in her mentioning that. It's just that's just how he is, and I don't think that there's anything.
Yeah, but I think maybe she saw it as critical because she does say, "Am I being too hard?" Like you said.
Well, I think part of that was because she was really psychoanalyzing someone that she has never met.
Oh, okay. So you thought that maybe she was overanalyzing it.
I think she might have thought, am I overstepping by saying really personal things about someone that Gordon Cole really loves? And it's also someone I've never actually spoken to, and never will speak to.
Okay, I see. She was more concerned about how Gordon would perceive her comments.
I think so.
Okay,
got it. So, because I don't think anyone would disagree.
That's a good point.
It's a little difficult for you and I to understand this because we're only children. But you know how you can have that friend who does nothing but bash their siblings?
Right.
And then you can say something like, "God, your sister was a real bitch today." Hey, well, she's really in a bad mood, like a bad day. Like the second anybody else says anything about them, they're like ready to pounce on you.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, Lori, my wife, she has 3 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from with that, because it's like, I can bash them all I want, but the second anybody else does it, I'm on them. I'm on their ass.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think it's a little bit of that. I think she's a little bit aware of she's the newbie in this really elite task force that is very close and has seen all kinds of craziness. And so,
to put it mildly, yes.
Yeah, and her observations about these people personally might be taken as, who the hell do you think you are, Preston?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's only so much of the envelope she can push with this.
mhm,
All right.
right.
So we move on to the next case file. Back in Twin Peaks.
Yes.
So,
And
go
we're
ahead.
here with Annie and the Miss Twin Peaks contest, where we all know this is where everything hit the fan and everything went completely to hell for so many people.
Well, especially Annie. Annie's life goes straight to hell, literally almost,
Oh my gosh.
in this segment. And, obviously we saw that when we left her in some of the deleted scenes for Fire Walk with Me, we saw her when she was in the hospital, kind of catatonic.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, just a wee bit.
That does not change.
So we kind of get some more details here. So we start off with a recap that Wyndham Earl took Annie to Ghostwood and was never seen again.
Well, I think it's interesting too about this is that Cooper plays right into his hand with this.
Yeah.
Because Cooper should know that he's taking Annie to get to Cooper. And Cooper is playing right into it.
It's all the trap, but maybe Cooper feels like he has no choice. But
that's the thing. Cooper feels that he needs to redeem himself for what happened with Caroline, and by God, he's not going to let that happen again. Unfortunately, he thinks that he does everything he can to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right.
By essentially sacrificing himself to Bob to let Annie get out.
Yeah.
But unfortunately he doesn't know that didn't work.
Yeah, I think he was hoping that he would find a way to get Annie out of there, which he does. Mm-hmm. He does rescue Annie.
Technically, yes, he does.
But it's, I think he could not have foreseen what it would do to his soul at that point.
Right. Or it wouldn't, I think he might have known that it was going to be bad for him, that he was going to take the brunt of whatever evil was in those woods.
Right.
But I think he was more, this is like the curse of the genie, when you wish for someone to be alive again and they are, but they're a zombie. That kind of a thing. So I don't think it's the real tragedy here is that he really thought that
the monkey's paw.
Monkey's paw. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So that was one of the things that was so hard for me with this, because I felt one of the things that I was able to tell myself when Cooper was Bob, well, at least he saved Annie.
Right.
But he didn't. And
not entirely. He saved her body, but
she's alive. But
yeah,
what kind of? It's like that. It's like in Game of Thrones when Khal Drogo has been cut and he's infected.
Yeah. And he's brought back from the dead. He's
brought back from the dead by that witch from the tribe that they had already raped and pillaged.
Right.
And, she said, how long is he going to be like this? And she says, until the sun rises in the west.
Meaning never.
Meaning never. Yeah, meaning never. And that this was her revenge for, she said, by the time you came to me, your soldiers had raped me 3 times. I'm not going to help you. What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing, that she's alive, but, she says one sentence.
Yeah.
Every couple of years.
Yeah, that's what we find out. So we find out that she spent one day in the hospital, had no memories, and the next morning she's catatonic again for the next 10 days.
Right.
But then when she wakes up, she never speaks again, except for one phrase, and. So, apparently she appears never to hear or see anything. So she's totally checked out.
Exactly. She's just gone. 8:38 in the morning.
Yeah.
She will have.
Yeah. So apparently on the anniversary of the day that she was found in the woods at 8:38, like you said, she apparently says, the only words that she ever says, "I'm fine."
I'm fine. Which is a response to the question. Oh my God, I'm going to cry. That's a response to the question, how's Annie?
Yep.
I'm fine.
Yep.
That's as good as we're gonna get, and it's so sad.
Yeah, it is.
Because
It is so.
life, and it made Cooper be in the lodge for 25 years, and it ruined everybody's life who came in contact with Doppelganger Cooper.
Right, because of obviously what happened with Audrey.
Right.
So yes, it's basically Wyndham Earl taking Annie to the Black Lodge set up this huge domino effect.
It did. It absolutely did. And it's just I would have preferred Donna's life for her. For her to leave Twin Peaks, become a model, and have to go to rehab.
Well, Donna actually, she goes through a ton of crap, most self-inflicted.
Mm-hmm.
But she comes out the other side, and she's like, okay, I'm going to rebuild my life, and I'm going to do this with my dad, and kind of restart my life in a more simple way.
Even Gersten has a better chance.
Yeah, because now that Steven's gone.
Now that Steven's gone, Gersten can still get some help. I mean, we obviously know that you can go through rehab and turn out okay, because that's what happened to Donna.
Right.
So even Gersten would be a better fate for Annie than this, because there's something that is keeping part of her in the lodge forever that we don't even know what it is.
Right.
The only person who could possibly know what it is Cooper. And for some reason, and we talked about this before, for some reason, Cooper is so laser focused on fixing the Laura Palmer problem that he doesn't even know this happened. He doesn't even know that, I sort of assumed that the first time he was Cooper and was not in any imminent danger from Doppelganger Cooper, this is what he would ask about. He would actually ask what happened to Annie? Was she okay? I mean, he would
he did a couple times mention Annie. There was this one, I'm trying to remember this one moment where he's like, he recollects Annie.
But not in a...
But not in a substantive way. He just...
No.
It's just more like a fleeting thought, and then he goes right back to where he is.
And then, but then part of me is thinking, well, Cooper knows that what started this whole chain of events to begin with was Laura Palmer.
Right.
He would not have been in Twin Peaks.
Maybe he figures that, by fixing Laura Palmer, it will solve everything and fix Annie in the process. Because if Laura hadn't died or whatever, then then he wouldn't have come to Twin Peaks. Annie's life wouldn't be put in danger by Wyndham Earl.
Right, because Wyndham Earl wouldn't have come to Twin Peaks because Cooper wouldn't have been there.
Exactly.
Wyndham Earl was only in Twin Peaks because Cooper was there.
Right.
And I think that if somebody else, if it had been Albert or Chet or Sam, well, Albert or Chet, because Sam wasn't part of Blue Rose.
Right.
But if Chet had never disappeared, and Chet would have been the one in Twin Peaks to find out what happened to Laura, that he would have just been like, okay, Chet, we found another letter. It's time for you to go back to the Pacific Northwest. And Wyndham Earl wouldn't have cared.
No, because he doesn't give a two figs about Chet.
Right. He doesn't care as much about the supernatural goings on in the woods that he obviously knows about because he's part of Project Blue Book.
Right.
I don't think he cares as much about the supernatural part of it as he cares about Cooper.
Because he was fixated on Cooper.
Right. He's fixated on Cooper, and he has been forever. So, but that's a...
Well, to be fair, Kyle MacLachlan is so dreamy, but...
He's very dreamy. There have been a lot of us who've been fixated on Agent Cooper. So, the thing that I don't
Annie is it's such a... it's a big kick in the teeth, this revelation that Annie is just kind of left in this horrible state.
It's so sad. Yeah. It's so sad.
She basically cruelly kicked over, and
she is the sacrificial lamb of this story.
Yeah,
she's not coming out of this. So now I have a question that I don't think got answered in this book, or else I missed it.
Okay, what's the question?
Where's Wyndham Earl's body?
Well, they say here in this case file that he was never seen again. So, presumably they don't know what happened to him.
That's a real Lovecraftian kind of an answer. Kind of a...
Yeah, I mean, we know what happened to him because we know he went into the Black Lodge and had Bob take his soul and whatnot. But
right, we know he's in the lodge, and he can't ask for your soul. I will take it.
Yeah.
But where's his body? Is he, like, if we were to see above the convenience store, like Philip Jeffrey, one of their meetings,
right?
Would he be there? Like, where is he?
Well, presumably he would be, like Leland. I think was essentially his soul was claimed, so he would probably be kind of like Leland. So presumably he could see. That was one of the things that I was thinking that we would see Wyndham Earl again in the new series.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
Leland also died. Like, Leland Palmer's body died in real life. Like, they had a funeral. They buried him.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, who died? A friend. He died. We buried him. So we at least know where, there is some sort of closure for, for what happened.
Well, I think what happened, because remember with Cooper, he went into the lodge physically.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Wyndham Earl did. It just so happened when he came out physically, he had been taken over by Bob and the doppelganger.
Right. But
presumably, Wyndham Earl's body could also have come out of the lodge at some point, but
where?
Yeah,
where is it?
We don't know.
That's the thing that's weird, is we don't know where it is, and it's possible that he is still in there. I mean, it could be that he is, if Bob took his soul, but doesn't have any use for his body.
Maybe he just consumed the body.
Maybe the body is part of the arm, or part of the Bob Garman-Bozia, or something.
Well, maybe we had the Dougie treatment where it just kind of dissolved, or and all there was left was clothes.
Maybe there's a Wyndham Earl selling insurance in Reno. I don't know. But
well, that's true. That's true. Maybe it's something like Laura. What happened with Laura becoming Carrie Page?
Something like that. Maybe there's a Wyndham Earl somewhere that, if you do bring him back to Pittsburgh or Twin Peaks or anywhere near anything that they, the, like Lewis and Clark's Trail or anything like that, he would pull a Laura and then it would all come running back to him. But we have no idea where his body is.
Well, maybe he's out in space in the Expanse.
Not anymore.
Oh, I stopped watching the Expanse.
Yeah. So that's actually where he is. He's in outer space. He's in the belt. But I think that's interesting that we could. Yeah.
I'm doing my bit for those who can't see. I'm just doing this bit of a body floating in space.
Body floating in space. It's too bad Laurie's not with you. You guys could do the dance from Airplane 2, where they
yes.
They just dance.
The bodies are just together.
Yeah, they float away. But or like I said, is he above a convenience store with the Chalfonts and Jurgen Prochnow and the other woodsman?
Could be.
So yeah, I found that curious that we don't have anything.
Or is he in a big percolator like Philip Jeffries, the Tin Machine?
Exactly. Maybe he's one of those, iron lung Lovecraftian tin machines.
Exactly. We don't know.
But yeah, we don't know. So that surprised me that we don't know that.
Damn it, Frost! Write another book.
Frost,
Chick's Fist. Okay, so so one of the other things that before we move on, I thought was kind of nice is that apparently Ben Horne steps up and helps Norma transfer Annie to the private psychiatric hospital. Good
for Ben Horne. Yes, she is being well cared for. On Ben Horne's dime, and he's obviously done that a couple of times.
Right.
He's taken care of Beverly's husband, who is dying of cancer. So I think taking care of people as in a distanced kind of a way,
right? Like a philanthropic way.
In a philanthropic way, yes, as in some sort of patron kind of a way. In the same way he took care of Eileen Hayward.
Right.
But that's what he can do from afar. He can care for you with money. That's about all he's got.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, granted, it's more than a lot of people do. but
Right.
that's the extent. It's not he's not directly involved. Like he's not actually there caring for Annie.
He's not bringing a casserole.
No,
but he's making sure that she's getting the best care that she can get and still be close to Norma.
Right. As long as he can throw money at the problem, he's good.
You don't throw drugs at the problem, you throw money at the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you $1,000 if you bring me my pills. That's what I'm talking about.
All right. So let's move on to Miss Twin Peaks.
Miss Twin Peaks.
Yeah, so this was a kind of an unexpected chapter because I didn't think that we would go back to this material, but we do. So we find out that the Twin Peaks Town Council, in Annie's absence, because, hey, she got carted off to the Black Lodge.
Because in the event that Miss Twin Peaks cannot fulfill her duty,
in the event that Miss Twin Peaks is having her soul damned in the Black Lodge.
Exactly. Yeah. This has never really been, I mean, with Miss America, it's just you had to be in porn and that would take your crown away.
So
but this has never really been
first runner-up will take place.
The first runner-up will assume the duties of Miss Twin Peaks.
Yes. In this case, that's Lana Budding Milford.
Why is it Lana? Oh, well, okay, never mind. I know why it's Lana, because Mayor Milford paid everybody off. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So we basically, she assumes the title.
Jazz erotica. What was it called?
It was like jazz fusion dance erotica or something.
It was something jazz erotica. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Something like that. So we find out that Dougie's possessions at the time of his death included one Rolex watch.
Mm-hmm.
And one jade ring.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, I should have this up. Go away. All right. So, so something dramatic like that. So, so Dougie had the ring.
Dougie had the ring.
Ring.
Douglas Milford is who we're talking about, not
right.
Not
Dougie. You're right. I should clarify this. Yes, Doug.
We got to clarify our Dougs here.
Yeah. Now thanks to Dougie in series 3, season 3.
It's Doug, and you've got the ring.
Yep.
Watch your ass.
Seriously.
That's all I'm saying.
Seriously. So,
well, I've got to say though, I'll bet Lana gave 2 rides. I'll bet she. So
Lana gave 2 rides.
Oh, I bet she did.
And then Janie E shows up, and how epic would that be? So we find out that Lana, because everybody wanted to know what was going on with Lana. Lana stayed in Twin Peaks just long enough for probate to certify the will.
Mm-hmm.
Doug's will.
Yep.
So
and then she's out of there.
Yeah. So then at this point, she's moving on up to
the mayor's side.
And I love Tammy's phrasing here. She calls it the plutocratic food chain.
The plutocratic food chain. Yeah, exactly.
And here's the kicker. We find out, and it's not specifically stated, but it's pretty heavily implied, that Lana briefly dated Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I am not kidding. I am not kidding about this.
That is, Gee, I wonder whatever happened to that guy.
Whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah. Maybe we should do a biography on him called "What the Hell Ever Happened to That Guy?" But
and here's even better. Tammy finds a photo where Trump is wearing the jade ring at a charity gala.
That's the only thing that can possibly explain the last year and a half.
Of course he is.
Yeah, of course he is. Oh my God. Crazy. That would explain a lot.
It does. It explains so much, doesn't it?
Only a few of us would understand, but yeah, if that was the case, we'd be like, all right, and then we could say, just hang on, everybody. This will all be over, and it's going to be horrifying. So hold on.
I read this whole chapter or this whole segment or paragraph and whatnot in the book, and I'm like, thank you.
Thank you. This is how I can sleep at night, knowing that this happened to my country.
Yes. We finally got the answers we were looking for. Who knew it would be in a book about Twin Peaks?
chapter is basically learning that Lana is just basically Vivian Smith.
Yeah, aspiring Vivian Smith.
Aspiring Vivian Smith, yeah.
Yeah, or excuse me, Vivian Smythe. Remember, because she changes her name. So the next dude that Lana marries lasts until 2008, when he dies of a heart attack in Antigua during a morning jog on the beach.
Well, that's going to happen when you marry rich men who are like 97.
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it?
You know.
Yeah,
exactly.
If you're Lana, that's the goal. That's like
that is the goal.
Mark one up in the win column for old Lana. And
that's the thing. And I've had this discussion a few times because of Anna Nicole Smith, those stories,
right?
And it's like, look, if you and your father have such a bad relationship that he's going to give his fortune to a stripper and not you, there's more problems there than the stripper. Pretty much.
Okay. Maybe he should have kind of fixed that relationship before he hooked up with the stripper.
Before the money. Yeah, before the money became imminent.
Yeah, exactly. And Tammy wants... Go ahead.
People had a hard time, but Superman Returns...
Yeah.
That was my favorite thing about Superman Returns, was that Lex Luthor got his money back by getting with an old rich lady.
Right. Because
who was Noelle Neal.
That's right. The original Lois Lane from the Adventures of Superman, who was also in the 1978 Superman film, by the way.
Yeah, but in the only in the extended cut, she
No, she's there, but she doesn't have a speaking role.
You see her, but
you don't hear her until the extended cut.
Right, you hear Lois Lane, you have a writer's gift for imagination.
Yep.
So, but yeah, she's on the train with the original Jimmy Olsen too. That's the guy.
Yeah, Jack Larson. No.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Jack Larson, but actually, she's on the train with Kirk Allen, who played Superman in the original serial.
I thought it was Jimmy Olsen. I need to watch it again.
No, it's not Jack Larson from The Adventures of Superman. She's on there with Kirk Allen.
Okay, so I need to watch it again. I thought it was Jimmy Olsen, but I remember my parents watching that movie going, wait a minute, is that Lois Lane?
Yep.
So
now I love Tammy's dismissal of Lana here. She refers to her. This is epic. Go ahead. You want to go ahead? You can read it if you want.
My favorite thing about this is as I'm reading this chapter or this part of the dossier, I'm like, why am I listening to Lana's story?
Right.
And then the last paragraph of this part of the dossier says, anyway, who cares? I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. Nobody gives a crap about Lana.
Yeah. No, here's the thing I liked, where Tammy said dismisses Lana as trash in a Tiffany bag.
Yes, as my mother used to say, trash is trash, even if it's in a Tiffany bag.
That was a pretty epic line.
I think that's fantastic.
That's a perfect summation there of Lana.
And that's true. Yeah, Lana was just,
Yeah. An opportunist.
Yeah,
opportunist,
exactly.
Excuse me.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on to Dr. Lawrence Jacoby. Dr. Amp.
It's 8:00. Do you know where your freedom is?
High atop here in Studio A. High atop Whitetail Mountain.
Whitetail Mountain.
Yep. So yes, we find out really quickly, we find out that Albert's a vinyl aficionado.
Yes, that's true.
So he's into vinyl. So you could appreciate that, I'm sure. And then we find out that Jacoby spent 94 to 95, and this is probably what I was thinking of in our past episode. I was kind of getting the stories mixed up between Jerry Horn and Dr. Jacoby.
Okay.
So apparently he spent 1994 to 95 on the road with the Grateful Dead until Jerry Garcia died. This is what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. I was remembering.
Right.
And then he spent 2 years in Amsterdam with some guy that is given the nickname Dr. Little Poops.
Dr. Little Poops, that's the best. You just want to know, who knew? Because the deal
Dr.
is
Dr. Little Poops in air. $1 million. Oh yes.
I've been asleep for 30 years. Need the info. The thing is about nicknames is you're not supposed to give one to yourself.
Right.
Okay, that's
a douche move, by the way. To gloss yourself is a douche move.
And it's one of those things that just is immediately marks you as completely uncool.
Yeah.
So who knew this guy well enough to name him Dr. Little Poops? Like, like who did he hire to flush for him or something? I don't know. How would you get that? You know, like in Buckaroo Banzai, it's like, who named him John Smallberries? I mean,
Nice.
come on.
John Bit Booty.
And you are John Smallberries.
Well, that's
What's
it.
your
That's
son?
it.
Yeah.
It was Dr. Emilio Lizardo who named him Dr. Little Poops.
Okay, well that makes sense. Because well, now that's the thing. I think all of those idiots made up their own
it's a Dr. Little Poops.
I think all those idiots made up their own nicknames, because otherwise, if it was Emilio Lizardo that gave the John Worfen, if he gave the nicknames, he would know how to pronounce Boutte.
Right.
He would know how to pronounce Big Boutte. So, anyway.
Big Booty.
It's Boutte! Boutte! Tay! So, yeah, Dr. Jacoby kind of spends a lot of time floating around, Hawaii, Amsterdam with the Grateful Dead, because he has lost his medical license. He can't practice medicine anymore.
Yep.
So, he is apparently from Hawaii, and he was left money by his brother after his brother passed away. So that's why he's able to sort of leave Twin Peaks, go France, Amsterdam, tour with the Grateful Dead, all this kind of stuff, because he's got nothing to do.
Right, exactly. Because he obviously can't practice anymore, so he's got time on his hands.
Right.
So in 2000, he ends up as a volunteer. Of course he does, for the Hanging Chad portion of the presidential election in Florida.
Right, working with Ralph Nader.
Yeah. So, and then we find out that, Jacoby was in New York City on 9/11.
Right, and he was there as a sort of like as a volunteer medic, trying to comfort people and trying to help the wounded and things like that. So you have to give him credit for that.
Yeah, apparently he was at an anthropological conference on shamanism at the Museum of Natural History.
Dr. Jacoby. But this is sort of what started him down the path of political paranoia.
Right. Because apparently at this point he realizes that the U.S. has entered what he terms as Kali Yuga, which is Hindu for Dark Age. Dark Age,
yes.
So you can thank the Bush administration for Dr. Vamp.
For Dr. Vamp, yes. 2003 is when he goes back home to Twin Peaks, and possibly to live that sort of survivalist life that he's living.
Yeah.
Because as you know, even though he is broadcasting his show across the internet, a lot of what he does is manual generator electricity kind of stuff. So, even his little pulley system for spray painting his shovels is manual. So he's trying to live as off the grid as he possibly can, yet still have the internet. So there is a certain geographical isolation quality to the mountains and woods around Twin Peaks. So I'm assuming that's why he went back there. Because again, he had the money from his brother. He'd been all over the world. He could have gone anywhere, but he picked back home.
So instead, he decided to go full conspiracy theorist guy.
Yes, exactly. Which in his YouTube channel went live in 2012.
Right.
Which I'm wondering, did that coincide with the whole idea that the world was going to end in 2012?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that in a while. It just didn't happen. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, we remember it was a whole big mind calendar thing that
right.
We were all going to die in 2012, and then they made a bad movie by wasn't the same guys that did Independence Day, Roland Emmerich.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich made that really bad movie.
Yeah.
I know this guy that talks about those.
With John Cusack.
Yes, with John Cusack, who needed a boat apparently, and I can't begrudge the man some money.
Yeah.
But with all of those world-ending rapture
portents
that we've had in the last 10, 15 years, there's a guy that I know that says that they actually happened. No one qualified. I think is pretty hilarious.
So basically, yeah, the rapture happened. Nobody knew it because none of us passed the test.
Yeah, nobody qualified to go. So
that's funny.
So yeah, 2000.
No. It wasn't like two people, like Prince and David Bowie. They were the only two that qualified.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. And then apparently Tom Petty qualified too, and Carrie Fisher.
There you go.
So yeah, 2012. He's got his YouTube channel. And
of the Dr. Amp Blast.
Dr. Amp Blast, which everybody who is feeling really disenfranchised because of the political climate, the economic climate, they're just ready to as we have seen in recent years and recent elections, people are just ready to grasp to any crazy thing that might just mean things might be different. So I think that's where he gets his, the mystery of Dr. Amp's identity became an indelible part of his mystique. And then people are trying to interview him, and they're trying to, give him money so he can have his own show. I'm assuming like on whoever is distributing Rush Limbaugh's show probably was giving him truckloads of.
I would think probably something more like InfoWars by Alex Jones.
InfoWars, or even like Coast to Coast.
Yeah,
something like that.
Something like that. Something fringy.
He'd be perfect for Coast to Coast.
Yeah,
and Coast to Coast, what are they on for, like 4 hours a night? I mean, they need programming. They need some content. So
I like again we have Tammy doing some introspection here.
Mm-hmm.
She questions digging out of her own shit.
Yes.
And she's with the phrase, to identify root causes of human misery and evil, do we first have to find them in ourselves? Ooh.
Well, probably. And I think that's, that was put into play by Nadine. Right. Saying, I've been an awful bitch all these years, keeping you being selfish and keeping you and Norma apart, and just realizing that that she knew that she and Ed weren't exactly great together.
Right.
But she had him and Norma didn't. And once she figured out that was just being selfish and not being realistic, that's when she said, I had this whole time to walk here. I've been thinking about it the whole time. So obviously I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was one of the more like interesting, totally unexpected developments of the new series.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you never expected Nadine to have her get her act together.
Nadine was so wise, and Dr. Jacoby.
I think she was more at peace with herself.
She was, and I think Dr. Jacoby helped her with that, and I think not just as a doctor, but as Dr. Amp.
Right.
And so that just sort of says something about Dr. Jacoby. He might be completely nuts, but I think he makes a lot of sense to other people who are completely nuts.
Right.
And if you shovel through his shit, he doesn't necessarily have a terrible message.
Right.
He's just presenting it in a completely batshit crazy kind of a way. So it's hard to take him seriously sometimes. Like, hi, I wear 3D glasses and I'm on YouTube in my shack in the woods and my best friend is Jerry Horn. It's like, okay. Nice to meet you. I gotta go.
It's not exactly the best ringing endorsement you can hope for.
No, it's not. No.
So we get what Tammy phrases as Jacoby postscript, but it's essentially, okay, we're going to find out about James in this chapter, which I thought was really weird because
it is kind of strange.
Jacoby has nothing to do with James apart from just the Laura connection.
Aside from the fact that James almost killed him with a heart attack.
Oh, that's true. There's that.
Yeah, he's got it's a tangential connection.
But he was part of a group because remember it was Maddie and all those. Yeah,
I blame Donna for all those shenanigans.
Let's just blame Donna because we don't like Donna that much.
Because we don't like Donna. Donna's the muffin.
Well, Laura says she's the muffin.
Well, Donna's the muffin.
Donna's the muffin. Chad is the muffin.
Chad. She should come back to Twin Peaks and hook up with Chad. No, because Chad can't.
Well, Donna's got her act life together. I wouldn't wish Chad on her at this point.
I don't know. Yeah, that's true. You know who needs to be with Chad? Lana.
Lana, totally.
Lana deserves a Chad. She should get
well,
knocked up
Vivian's
with Chad.
dead, so yeah, Lana's the perfect candidate for that.
Yeah. I mean, Lana's too old to, get knocked up by somebody, but
Right.
she should have Chad sniff around her, oh, there's this old lady who's rich now from all these old guys. I should hook up with her.
That would be totally
from Chad.
Yes, that would be totally ironic if Chad came around and fleeced her the way she fleeced all those other guys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she gets to stay. I mean,
karma, baby.
She gets to stay alive. I mean, she's only in her 50s. I mean, she's not she's not that old, so it's not like she's gonna die the second.
Well, look how long Evelyn was working it, apparently.
Seriously.
Or not even, Vivian. I'm sorry,
Vivian.
Yeah.
Vivian. She worked that a long time. I'm just saying that, usually when Lana gets with a guy, and Vivian as well, they die. Vivian killed them, but Lana, I think, just picked the 97-year-olds.
Right. She just because she wasn't intentionally trying to kill anybody.
No, she just let time take care of that for her.
Yeah, exactly. She was just biding her time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So,
and maybe trying to accelerate the process with some, fusion dance, jazz dance moves or whatever.
What? It's something jazz erotica.
Jazz erotica, yes.
Oh my god! It's like new age jazz erotica.
Something like that.
I'll have to watch it again.
All right. So for James,
what is going on in Mexico?
James. So we find out that during his trial as a witness for the prosecution, James skipped town after the defense attorney tore his testimony apart.
And this is for the murder of what's his name?
Yeah, the husband, Evelyn Marsh. Or Evelyn Marsh.
Evelyn Marsh's husband, yes.
Yes. With the chauffeur, the chauffeur killed him.
The chauffeur who's my brother, who I'm actually sleeping with.
You. Yeah.
Yeah, the Twin Peaks interlude that was its own invitation to love. Yeah. The James Early saga.
The one that nobody wanted.
That most of us just fast forwarded through.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're doing a rewatch, okay, it's like, I'm going to skip these 4 episodes or whatever.
Yeah, we love you, James, but no. Yeah. This was not the best use of your character.
Not that much.
No.
Yeah, so we find out that James hid out in Baja, Mexico, posing or working as a mechanic under an alias.
Right.
And apparently he repaired an engine block on a Lamborghini Diablo belonging to a Sinaloa cartel capo. And apparently there was a rival gang that tried to kill the capo, but James survived the attack, only to get picked up by the federales. This
kind of reminds me of the Balthazar Getty character in Lost Highway.
Yeah.
Where he's the personal mechanic to the mob.
Yeah.
So
basically, James has his own Breaking Bad moment here with Mexican cartels.
Yeah, he's not. He's throwing snake eyes his whole life.
Yeah, pretty much. He's basically Aaron Paul here. If you watch Breaking Bad. So Harry and Gordon make some calls for him, though, looking out for him. So they had James escorted to the border.
Let's not forget that James was a bookhouse boy.
That's true.
So there's that certain brotherhood going on.
Yeah, and then obviously Harry called Gordon to kind of grease the wheel a little bit.
Right.
And so they got him to the border, but the Mexicans told him never to return.
Right.
So a jury finds Evelyn Marsh and her lover guilty for murdering her husband. Yay!
Yay! Now you can go to prison. We never have to see you deal with James again.
Exactly. So, however, Oregon said that James owed them 6 months for fleeing the bench warrant.
Yeah.
With 2 years probation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So.
But Big Ed is looking out for James, though. So he ends up renting an apartment in Portland to help him out.
Yes.
And it's about this time that Nadine opens her drapery store.
Run Silent Run Drapes.
Run Silent Run Drapes, which is a great name.
It is so great.
Yep. And apparently that was just before Ed returns home. So it's like, oh, hey, honey, guess what? I've got a new store.
Yeah. exactly. So he was spending a lot of time in Portland trying to make sure that James stayed.
Yeah.
Not
So obviously this is how Nadine kept busy while Ed wasn't there.
He's up there trying to not just make sure that James stays on the level, but that James stays, like literally stays in one place.
Exactly.
So
it's like, how hard is it to just not leave the state?
Well, for James, apparently very hard. James is definitely a fight or flight kind of a guy, and he's got a good track record for flight.
The road is calling me.
The old highways are calling. You don't want to get messed up with a guy like me, Dottie. I'm a rebel.
I'm a loner, Dottie. A rebel.
Deja vu. You know those "do not remove under penalty of law" stickers they put on mattresses? Well, I took a knife and I tore one of them off.
That's great.
That was so great. I got real mad and I took a knife and I... Mickey. It's such a great moment in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Anyway, yes, today being the anniversary of Large Marge's demise.
So
January 11th, 1974.
I'll pour out one for myself and one for Large Marge.
One for Large Marge. Tonight's the anniversary. 10 years ago on a night.
Just like this.
I went and saw that movie when it came out in the theater in 1985 with my dad. I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And my dad still, to this day, talks about how I jumped about a foot when Large Marge came at me because I'd never seen... I mean, I was 9 years old.
Well, you're 9 years old. That's pretty scary.
Well, and I'd never seen, like, Vincent or Frankenweenie or any of those
Tim Burton
animated things that Tim Burton had done. So, and this is Pee Wee Herman. I'm not expecting something scary from Pee Wee Herman.
Right, you're just like, oh, that's the guy I saw on HBO.
Right, or the guy who's got... I don't know. He didn't have the Playhouse wasn't on yet, but yeah,
it is the HBO special because that's what got him popular to make the movie.
Right, the HBO specials, and then he was on Letterman, and my parents used to tape Letterman, and then we'd all watch it during dinner the next day.
Right.
So I'd seen him on Letterman, and so I loved him. My friend Barbara and I were huge Pee Wee fans from children, and I didn't expect anything scary. I didn't know what Tim Burton was back then.
Right. So, well, nobody did really because that was his first big movie. Yeah.
It was his first really big movie. So I think they were sort of perfect together. They have that same sort of like circusy, creepy, kind of 50s humor sort
retro,
of thing. Yeah, that retro thing. So it was perfect. But yeah, I jumped like a foot in my seat.
I'll bet.
And like I said, my dad still talks about it to this day because I went with my dad.
What did your dad think about that?
My dad just thought it was funny how much I jumped. That's
funny.
But my dad likes Pee-wee. My dad likes Pee-wee too.
Good. That's good.
He always enjoyed the HBO specials. So, but yeah. So back to James.
James goes back to the gas farm in 2006.
He's working at the gas farm, and he's also, as we know, he's working night security at Great Northern.
Right. He picked that up as a second job a few years later in 2009. And Tammy observes that she thinks that a part of James died when Laura died.
I think so too.
And it's haunted him ever since.
It has definitely haunted him ever since. Yeah. And I think that's also evidenced by James at the Roadhouse playing Just You.
Right.
That after all these years... it's that song. And I don't know if it's Laura that's haunting him, or if it's Donna that's haunting him, or both of them, or just the whole situation itself. But obviously, I think that's played a part in James running away from himself and running away from any sort of meaningful relationships with other people, not just with women, just with other people in general.
Well, I think they were trying to at least hint that Laura's presence affected the entire town.
Absolutely.
Because like with the credits, they show Laura, her face and Ghostwood and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. And
superimpose over Ghostwood Forest.
Well, and even when you have something like, I think that any principal would be sad if one of the kids in their school was found murdered, but everybody just is nuts for Laura. Everybody goes crazy for her. So... I don't know.
Yep.
She's very special. She's a very special character.
So we also get some more information on Norma and Big Ed.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Keep in mind, again, this is the Dr. Jacoby chapter. So Norma apparently was helping out families after the Packard Mill shut down. She was extending credit to them and helping them.
That was this is one of those small towns that is a town because of an industry. Yeah. And when that industry is gone,
right.
Like let's take, Flint, Michigan as an example. Doesn't go well.
No. And this is probably when Grant Goodeve shows up.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we find out that, hey, Ed and Norma did get married.
Ed and Norma
Yay! I've been loving you too long. Yeah. To stop now.
Half the town was at their wedding.
Yep.
Andy Brennan called more or less throughout, and I'm told even Deputy Chief Hawk had got a tear in his eye.
Yep.
His old friend Big Ed's Hurley luck had finally turned.
And James played a song, of course. He probably sang Just You. That'd be kind of hilarious if he did Just You.
A little bit weird. A little bit weird, but oh my gosh.
That's my one song. That's all I know. It's my big hit.
I love this. On that same day, Big Ed Hurley, pushing 70, in front of the lunch rush at the Double R Diner, proposed to Norma Jennings, who, it turned out, was just at that moment giving the city slicker and his plans to take Norma's Diner corporate the heave-ho. To paraphrase Vince Lombardi, timing isn't everything, it's the only thing.
Yep. Totally agree.
Oh, that made me so excited. I was so happy. I was like, so yeah, if you've been a little depressed or freaked out by anything that we've talked about in this book, this paragraph makes it so worth it.
So it's like Ed finally sealed the deal.
Oh, Ed. Jeez.
About damn time.
It's about damn time. Yep. Exactly.
All right. So from here, we
get sad again.
And we get very sad again. So we go to a chapter that is titled Margaret Coulson. And I had to do a double take on this because I thought Margaret's last name was Lanterman. And because she's played by Catherine Coulson.
She's played by Catherine Coulson.
Yeah.
Yes.
So was that just a screw up on Frost's part?
See, well, let's get
you understand my confusion here.
Yeah, let's get a little further into the book.
Okay.
So
we have the Log Lady's funeral that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently this was also widely attended by the entire town, not just half the town.
Right.
On the shores of beautiful Pearl Lake with no conventional service because we had many people sharing stories.
Yes.
And Hawk was the last to speak. Of course he was.
Oh, yeah, of course he was.
And he read from a page that Margaret gave him the day before she died.
Woo!
Yeah, not at all
so
creepy.
Many interesting things. The answers to all the trees, the rocks, and the water.
Right.
Which is so interesting to me because there is that entrance to the Black Lodge where there's trees that are blowing through the breeze, and then there's that engine oil, dark water surrounded by rocks. It's like, yeah, no kidding, Margaret.
Yeah, we got it. We got the concept.
Yeah, that's exactly where it is.
Yeah, and he makes the comment that from her saying that darkness will always yield to light when the light is strong.
And that reminded me of something that she said to Laura in Fire Walk with Me.
Right.
When this kind of flame burns, it is very hard to put out. So Laura was a light that, what is the line from Blade Runner? The light that burns twice as bright burns twice as fast, and you have burned so brightly, Roy.
Oh, that's right.
And
I forgot that line. You're right.
And I think that's how Laura was. Laura was such a bright light and such a bright flame that when she was burning, even Bob couldn't take her. I mean, Bob could torment her, but he couldn't have her. He never got her.
Right.
I mean, even when she died, angels.
She fought him as hard as she could.
She fought him forever. I mean, and until she just was tired and she couldn't do it anymore. But he still never got her. He may have killed her, but he never got her.
Right.
She's with the angels, not with Bob. she's not Wyndham Earle. We know where Laura is.
Right.
So interesting.
That's true.
But I love Hawk in the her ashes were scattered in Ghostwood Forest.
Right.
And Hawk says that he's not heard anything, but he's keeping an ear open just in case.
Yeah, I like that.
So she's never really going to go anywhere.
Yeah, apparently he keeps it on his mantle.
Mm-hmm. I love this line too, where Tammy says, "As you know, I don't consider myself a religious person, but when I read these words of hers, sometimes I think maybe I'll get my chance someday to meet her, not become religious."
Right.
She had to put that
For the
caveat.
qualifier, yes.
I thought that was pretty funny.
That is pretty funny.
So, but that's the thing about the name. It's like let's see what the.
I have to
get weird.
Well, that's true. That's a good point.
So,
I wasn't considering that, but now that you mention it, put in that context, you could have something there.
Because we talked about this with the Secret History,
right.
that there's more here than meets the eye.
All right, so when we're talking about Twin Peaks and then we say that something's about to get weird, it's about to get effing weird.
It's about to get weird.
It's about to get messed up.
You guys don't even know. Like, when in the realm of Twin Peaks we talk about something being weird, we are... when the German doctor tells you to hold on to your hat, hold on to your hat.
The weirdness is turned up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we go to next from here to Sheriff Harry Truman.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out...
Things to say about Josie. So.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing. We didn't get anything about Josie.
Well...
Is she still in that doorknob? The drawer knob, I mean.
We did not get anything about Josie, and I'm just...
I think that's a lot. Give us another book, damn it, or better yet, another season.
Come on, Mark Frost, do it because you love us.
Yeah, exactly. We find out that Harry lived his whole life in Twin Peaks. Aw.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he never abandoned his investigation of what happened to Cooper.
No, even when he was sick, he was still, trying to read through the files in his sick beds. He never gave up on it.
He apparently was just that obsessed with it. I presume he never married, because if he was this obsessed with everything.
That's true, and I think he was pretty wrecked by Josie. I mean, if you remember, he was about to shoot himself in the head.
That's true, but you can rebound with somebody else.
You can rebound, but rebounds don't last. That's why they're called a rebound.
Well, I mean, you rebound, and then you have the next good relationship after the rebound, technically, or generally.
Well, the
rebound helps you get over the first relationship. And then the third relationship is the one that really tends to more get you back on track.
True, but if you think about Harry Truman having lived in Twin Peaks his entire life, if it took the mysterious gangster murderess from China to turn his head,
right?
I don't think any of the girls next door that he's known his entire life are going to do it.
That's true. That's a good point.
And especially since
Harry likes the bad girls.
He does, and I think that probably was difficult for him, being a man of integrity and a man of the law. Because I know that the Bookhouse Boys, they do skirt the law quite a bit,
right?
But
they just look the other way. But
it's more they're more of a Repairman Jack kind of a thing, where they're not shirking the law for personal gain or for evil. They're not like their own group of gangsters. They're fighting the groups of gangsters. They're the ones that are going to, try and...
They're just not getting bogged down in the technicalities of the law.
Right. They're the ones that are going to keep their eyes on the Renaults and things like that. So they're not going to... So I think having fallen for someone who was so opposite of that, Josie has quite the rap sheet. I mean, Josie's killed a lot of people. She's done all kinds of things. She's fled all kinds of places, and then basically was married Andrew Packard because she was kind of indebted to him. It was like either marry Andrew Packard or get left to the wolves in China to be killed.
Right.
So,
well, I'm sure some of that was Josie's own making. So she kind of painted herself into a corner.
Oh, of course it was. Absolutely. It was completely her own making.
Yeah.
But,
And then she got desperate.
she got desperate and did what she could. And I think she did a really good job of hiding who she really was.
Right.
Because who she really was exhausting. And
Yes.
she had to be she had to hide who she was, because the Josie we knew before she married Andrew, Catherine would have been dead like long time ago.
Right.
If Catherine tried to pull some of the crap she pulled on Josie back when we knew the old Josie. Yeah, Catherine would have been dead. We still wouldn't know where her body is.
Yeah, especially after like that whole business where Catherine makes Josie her maid servant.
Yeah, exactly. Which that whole thing was a little bit ridiculous, but
yeah.
But and you just want to say to Catherine, it's like, okay, you find out that you have this deadly gangster in your midst, and this is all you can think of to do with her is make her clean for you. Have some imagination.
Right.
Little princess. All you need is a maid. Good God.
I think she just wanted to see Josie twist for a while, but she wasn't really. She wasn't thinking long term. I
think she wanted to quote unquote humiliate her, because I think that's a fallacy by the idle rich that the servant profession is a humiliating one, and it's not. It's a totally
beneath her station. Yeah,
it's a perfectly noble profession, and just because someone serves you doesn't mean they're any less than you. It's just they're not doing it because there's something inherently great about you. They're doing it because you pay them to.
Well, keep in mind that Catherine saw herself as an elitist.
Very much so.
Yeah,
very much so. So, but yeah, Josie. Yeah, there was a lot to Josie, and I think with Truman, I wonder if he realized that he could make himself blind to just about anything for kind of all the wrong reasons.
Right.
So add that to getting an obsession with Cooper. That's probably no time for the ladies,
Yeah, probably. So we get confirmation that Harry has cancer, and he's undergoing treatment at a research hospital in Seattle. He told nobody about it, but Hawk figured it out right away.
Yes, and he's still alive.
Right.
But he's in Seattle, and
it's not looking good, probably.
No, it's not looking good, but he is still alive currently, even though we have no idea where Michael Otkeen is.
Yeah.
So.
Apparently, Frank took the job as sheriff for 2 years to stabilize the department. Then he plans to step down and hand it over to Hawk. My question is, how long does Hawk have to be there before people trust him enough to hand it over to him?
Seriously, but the thing is, I think Hawk is one of those sort of quiet loner kind of guys.
Maybe he just didn't want the job and he had to be convinced to take it.
He probably doesn't necessarily want to manage people,
right?
Like he probably doesn't want to have to.
But he's the most qualified to do.
He's definitely the most qualified, but that doesn't necessarily mean he wants the job.
Right.
But now that Chad's gone,
right,
probably going to be a little bit easier. Chad, hate Chad.
I hate Chad. But yeah, I just read that. I was just like, okay, why is it so hard as somebody say, okay, Harry's gone. Why? Let's make Hawk the sheriff.
Maybe Hawk is the Sam Lowry of the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
That he keeps getting offered promotions, but keeps turning them down because he just likes where he is. It's quiet.
Right.
Nobody bothers him. He can do his own thing.
Yeah, he doesn't have to fill out forms and all this, and it doesn't have to deal with staffing and all this.
Have you got a 27B stroke 6?
Right.
Because we can't make a move without a 27B stroke 6.
It goes all Office Space. Yes.
That's information retrieval. You want information accounting.
And then you have Andy and Lucy beating up a fax machine, or
yeah, that's the thing. Imagine doing Andy and Lucy's performance reviews every year. That'd drive anybody crazy.
That's a good point. That definitely helps sell the argument that Hawk wouldn't want the job.
Lucy's goal for next year: understand telephones. I actually, after talking about the log lady, I need to tell you another story about my meeting Kimmy Robertson.
Yeah.
I was wearing my log lady necklace.
This is at the Steel City Comic Con. We talked about this last episode.
We did, but I had forgotten to tell you this part of it. But I was wearing my Log Lady necklace.
Right.
There's an artist out of Cincinnati. Her name is Amy Flusher,
Mm-hmm.
and she is Hunky Dory Designs on Etsy, I believe, and it's glass. She does glass things. She has coasters. She makes nightlights. That's who did my Laura Palmer nightlight. Was Amy Flusher.
That's cool.
And she burns images into glass. And one of the necklaces, and there was one year she was at the Cincy Comic Con, and like I just kept going back to Chris's table, like, did you make any money? Can I have it? I like came back with a bunch of necklaces, like Pee Wee
Hurry up
Herman
and
had.
draw more stuff. I need more.
Exactly.
I need this.
Like take more commissions because I need like 10 more necklaces. But you know that scene in Pee Wee's Big Adventure where he comes out with the snakes in his arms, like
Yeah.
It's like that's what I was coming home. I had like that many necklaces from this woman. She's great. You can find I'm not sure if you can still find her stuff at Holy Craft, but you could find her stuff there. But yeah, she's out of Cincinnati, so I had a Log Lady necklace that I was wearing that day, and Kimmy Robertson. I was talking to either Harry Gauze or Sherilyn Fenn, and she just saw it and just leaned over and grabbed me and grabbed my necklace and looked at it, and then just went like this, like put her hands over her heart. So it's like everybody loves Catherine Coulson. She's quite a great loss to the world. So
yes, it was. Yes. And it was great. But at least we got one last performance from her.
Yes, exactly. So on to another great loss, Don Davis.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to Major Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
His case file. This is obviously where we get into the heavier stuff, that we saw in the return. So, so as we know, Briggs expected a visit from his new Blue Rose control in air quotes, and he assumed Cooper was the control. So he thought that Cooper was going to be his new liaison, I guess.
Well, we don't know who it was supposed to be because Cooper's who showed up.
Right. But I mean, Major Briggs assumed maybe.
Major Briggs assumed that because Cooper's who showed up, but Cooper didn't show up to be the control. Cooper showed up to kill him.
And as we know Major Briggs was concerned after that visit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So apparently, after the doppelganger left, Major Briggs went to Listening Post Alpha, which we knew about from the previous book.
Right.
And he was talking about Mayday, and we find out that is the Mayday protocols, which apparently require him to secure or destroy all the data there and disavow or destroy advanced technology used during the study.
Exactly. So he figured out that he'd been compromised with Doppelganger Cooper, and then once Doppelganger Cooper figured out that he'd figured out, that's when Cooper killed him.
Yep. So basically, his whole plan was just like, okay, I got to torch all this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before Cooper gets it. Yep.
So now we'll never know.
Nope, because apparently Doppelganger Cooper showed up at Listening Post Alpha, sacked it, and assaulted Major Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
And then apparently the wreckage of Briggs's car was found a few days later at the bottom of a nearby canyon with a charred, unidentifiable corpse with a few of Briggs's teeth placed nearby.
And we, of course, know from the return that that's not Major Briggs's body.
Right.
That his body has been elsewhere, not aging at all.
Right.
And his head, God only knows.
Yeah.
Where his head is.
Now, Tammy thinks this is all staged by Major Briggs.
The death? Possibly, but...
The way I kind of figured this, I was trying to figure out the timeline of this.
Mm-hmm.
My theory is that maybe, Doppelganger Cooper, we know he assaulted Major Briggs. So maybe at that point, maybe he knocks a few of Major Briggs's teeth out. Major Briggs picks up the teeth and gets a hold of a body, chars the corpse, scatters his teeth as to fake his own death,
and
then disappears.
Okay, so the death being faked wasn't Doppelganger Cooper.
It was Briggs.
Taking him somewhere. It was Briggs. But then where did Major Briggs go that he lost his body and his head?
Right. Well, we find out here. Okay, so at this point he goes to Buckhorn, South Dakota.
And we know where that is.
Exactly. And apparently this
is that's where you find the zone.
The zone. Yes, in the zone. Yeah. And this is where he met Bill Hastings and Ruth Davenport, that librarian, who was apparently like super hacker. They meet up at a derelict vacant lot. Yes, that derelict vacant lot that we saw in The Return.
Number 6, yep.
With those pesky vortexes popping up. So apparently they hacked the military database for the coordinates, like we learned during the series. But apparently they were about to give them to the Major when a vortex appeared, and the woodsman came out of it, decapitating Ruth and the Major.
Right.
So the woodsmen take out the Major Briggs, and Bill Hastings ends up suffering memory loss.
Convenient.
Until, of course, one of the woodsmen shows up and basically blows his head up in the backseat of a car.
Yeah, they're going to find that memory in his head come hell or high water, even if they have to smash it open to do it.
Exactly. It's in there somewhere. It blew it up like a pumpkin in a microwave.
Blowed up real good.
Woo! So Tammy speculates that, she wonders if the Blue Rose Task Force had this information all along, and apparently this was left by Major Briggs in a place where Bill Hastings and Ruth Davenport could find it.
Right, and because and that would make sense because the Blue Rose Task Force, as saw throughout the Return, kind of has no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
a lot of things, and I think Blue Book is definitely one of those things.
Well, it also ties up the plot hole that how the hell did a principal and a librarian hack into a major military database?
Yeah, exactly. Which it's not terribly.
No, I mean, if they were like considerably, like expert hackers.
Right, if they're expert hackers, and they did meet the Major, so that would help. But why is Major Briggs not aging? Why is he still just in his late 50s?
Right.
That's the weird thing.
That is the weird thing. And we don't really get an explanation for that.
We don't get an explanation for that. That is a strange thing. So he, and even Tammy says, did he know that...
Well, we know he was time traveling from the original series.
So did they meet the Major in a current time stream, or did he somehow escape through the circuits of time when he was fleeing Doppelganger Cooper back in the 90s?
See, that's what I'm thinking. Because we know that, obviously Cooper was able to travel in time. So maybe Major Briggs did the same.
That's the thing. Maybe when he visited, and maybe that's why his head is in space, because it's more circuits of time than it is outer space.
Right, because remember in the original series, that was that whole business where he shows up at home after having disappeared, and he's all decked out in like an old World War II airman's uniform.
Yeah, that's true too.
You know what I'm saying? So
that's an interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like where's he been, and how is he getting where he's getting? Right. So yeah, that's interesting.
He's just trying to make the leap home,
hoping that each leap will be his last.
Oh boy. So more. What exactly? So Tammy's wondering what Doppelganger Cooper wanted if he actually made it to the location he was searching for.
Well, you'd think if he made it to the location he was searching for, he would have had the coordinates 25 years ago.
Right.
So, but then, why... Okay, so...
Here's where we get... All right, this is where we start pouring bourbon and whatnot. And, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, by the way, it's still not gotten weird yet. We're still not even there.
Yeah.
What... So the coordinates... So this must mean that the coordinates are time sensitive.
Right.
Because...
Well, I think they remember they were talking about how the coordinates had to be like a certain planetary alignment.
Right. So
And
Cooper,
because remember that note of paper, or that little paper that was hidden inside Major Briggs's chair.
Right. If he misses them, he misses them. He's just got to
Right.
wait another 25 years.
Yeah, he's got to wait for certain dates, certain time, certain place.
Right. So Cooper, takes up a life of organized crime.
Right.
To pass the time.
I think he's building up his resources so that he's able to pull off what he wants to pull off when the alignment hits.
Right, and so he can, get vehicles, get people, get whatever.
Right.
Why he needs the warden to die, I'm not sure where that all works into it.
That just could be just loose ends he's tying up.
It could very well be. But again, why is are the coordinates not the same place every time?
That's the hint that I got, that because he didn't know where the coordinates would be.
And so
he had to figure out a way to find out where the coordinates in this particular alignment would be.
Right, but if they're not...
If I understand it correctly.
But if they're not Twin Peaks every time, why was he trying to get back? I don't get it. That's the thing. I'm not sure I'm supposed to either. Yeah. So there's a bunch of possibilities here with that.
Right.
So
Tammy connects Doppelganger Cooper to the dweller on the threshold that Hawk mentioned way back in the day.
Right.
So we kind of get a little connection to that. And she makes a comment here, which is, I quoted it exactly here because I love this comment so much. Okay, she says, "Are they cranking out these duplicate creatures in an alternate reality Kinko's with some kind of Lovecraftian 3D printer? Pardon my French for a second, Chief, but what the F?"
That is so true.
And again, thank you.
Yes, that's exactly what we've all been thinking since the return started back up.
Right.
And
I love that that Frost is acknowledging this stuff through Tammy.
They are just messing with us.
Yes,
that's all that's going on here.
Right. Well, they just know it's bizarre, but that the fact that they're like having their characters start to admit this is just hilarious to me.
Right, and you have people like the Diane Tulpa, and then the Diane Nido, right. And how, is Nido a dweller because she is right there when they need her to be?
Right.
So, what is going on in Mexico?
Okay, so if that's not enough, let's talk to everybody's favorite topic, Philip Jeffries.
Yes.
So we don't get much about Philip, oddly here.
Well, how much can you give about Philip?
Well, that's just true, but I would have liked to have gotten a bit more explanation about after him appearing in Argentina, then in Philadelphia, and then how he got from there into his tin machine. How
did he get into the tin machine? Again, another Lovecraftian,
right?
Mechanical,
the 3D printer
abomination.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Lovecraftian coffee pot. So we find out that Philip Jeffries is the son of an old aristocratic Virginia family. And Gordon Cole once wrote about him that this world wasn't enough for him. Which is a very poignant sentiment.
That is very poignant, and it's probably something you could say about David Bowie as well.
That is exactly what I'm thinking.
That there's more to this world that can offer.
It just couldn't contain him. Like it wasn't like it was just too small for his greatness.
So I had to go look for life on Mars.
Exactly. Nice. Very nice. So we went back to 1973. Oh wait, no, that's a different Life on Mars. Sorry. I love that show too. So we went to Argentina in 1986 to investigate an international criminal enterprise. Ends up finding someone of particular interest to us. Excuse me. Joudy. We're not going to talk about. Well, actually, we are going to talk about Joudy.
We're going to talk about Joudy. We're going to put her in it.
Yes, we are.
And she asks when they're talking about Jeffries about how Cooper put in his report about the long lost Philip Jeffries coming back, and we're not going to talk about Joudy.
Right.
And then she says she can't find any corroboration of that in any of the bureau. She said, "Did you have them erased?" And that's the thing, that it just never happened. He was never here.
Right.
So it was some sort of loop that they all experienced, but
it's a bootstrap paradox.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think that Cole had to do anything. I think everything got erased and the traces of it were removed just from the event itself happening.
Right. So we go to a chapter named Joudy, appropriately enough. So we find out that carved into the wall in Jeffrey's hotel room in Argentina was the words Joudy, 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 near the telephone, because electricity.
The electricity.
And Joudy is the name of an ancient entity in Sumerian mythology. This is where we finally get explanation of what the hell Joudy is.
Sumerian, not Babylonian.
Yeah, Sumerian. Yeah, exactly. Very nice. Dating back to 3000 BC, a species of wandering demon, also known as a Nutuku, that had escaped from the underworld, and this is where we go all X-Files. And we don't even have Denise Bryson nearby. That had escaped from the underworld and roamed the earth. Walk the earth like Kane in Kung Fu.
You're going to be a bum. Because without a job, residence, or legal tender, that's what you are. You're a effing bum. I'll just be Jules, Vincent.
Yep. So they feasted on human flesh. Of course they did. It ripped souls from their victims. Hey, that sounds familiar. They thrived feeding on human suffering. Again, that sounds a lot very familiar.
Probably have
yeah, who does that remind me of?
You've been through.
Exactly. So Joudy was female and Baal was male.
Right, which is, we've heard of Baal and other pagan legends.
Exactly. So apparently they talk about here is like if they happen to unite on Earth, their marriage would cause the end of the world.
And now it looks like it may actually happen.
Right. To go back to Ghostbusters. Yeah. We have got to get these two crazy kids together.
Be good. For goodness sake. Whoa, somebody's coming. We got to get out of here. We got to talk to a judge or something.
Epic. So Baal, of course, became Beelzebub. Not Beelzebubba, the Dead Milkman album.
The Dead Milkman record, yes.
A few centuries later.
Known as the devil.
Yep, exactly. So, but so in case you're wondering, so the question now, of course, is pretty much. It seems like it's pretty heavily implied that the experiment is Joudy.
Is Joudy, right. Yes. And if we can,
not Sade, the singer.
Right. And we have got to get these two together.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that would be extraordinarily bad, Peter.
Gozer the Destructor. Sorry.
Are you the Keymaster? Yes! I'm a friend of his. He told me to meet him here. Sometimes Ghostbusters dialogue just says for you what you're trying to think of the words to say.
Who knew there was a Twin Peaks Ghostbuster connection? But yeah,
who knew?
We figured it out. Zane figured it out. All right. So finally we get some answers. So if you're wondering what the hell Joudy was, that's it. Okay. Now, sounds like the making of a really great story. I want to know more about, what happened with Joudy or Joudy or whatever.
Do we get it in this book?
Nope.
No.
Are we getting a season 4?
Please.
That would be nice.
David Lynch, Mark Frost, you love us.
Could be a really cool movie if you did it, right?
Well,
but
we'll see. We'll be happy to read it.
Yeah, that would be nice. So, but instead, we move on to Ray Monroe.
Ray, who was hired by the millionaire to be some sort of an agent for Jeffries, and he only knows he's a voice on the phone. And
right,
poor dumbass Ray.
Yeah, pretty much.
He really thought
Ray ends up getting he thinks he's been recruited by Philip Jeffries.
Yeah, no.
Nope. Turned out it was somebody else inside the Blue Rose Task Force.
Yup.
And Tamley speculates about, well, what if Jeffries had access to portals, as in the vortexes?
Well, if Major Briggs can, why wouldn't Philip Jeffries?
Yeah, but apparently she wonders if they made him untethered in time, which is just a fancy way of saying unstuck in time.
Yeah.
So, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out that the Dutchman's Lodge matchbook led to an empty space on the highway. But a motel existed there in the early 1930s, as we kind of piece together in the return. It was built by Horace the Dutchman Vandersant as a mob-friendly lodge, and then shut down in 1962 and demolished in 1967. Here's the fun part. It's located directly between Twin Peaks and Missoula, Montana!
Yep. So that's,
There's your Missoula connection.
There's where, Bob apparently overshot it on his way and picked up Leland Palmer on his way back.
Yeah.
So.
He needs to get a better GPS, I guess. But.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yep.
And so that's...
Turn left here.
Turn left at the empty pile of dirt. You have reached your destination.
Your final destination.
You have arrived at your final destination. So yes, Tammy's thinking that are these portals, do they explain Major Briggs not aging? Do they explain Ray thinking that he's talking to Philip Jeffries? And he knows he's just talking to a voice on the phone that sounds like it's, through some sort of voice box.
Yeah.
But he's still doing what he does. Whatever for, I don't know.
Now, Tammy keeps asking these questions, not really knowing the full picture. We don't know the full picture. We just happen to know more than Tammy does.
Well,
a little bit more.
A little bit, well, just because we've been looking at this since probably before Tammy was born.
Exactly.
So let's be honest here. But she also mentions what we sort of noticed in Fire Walk With Me, and we talked about this in Fire Walk With Me, that after having seen The Return, Fire Walk With Me is just now this brilliant movie that we never really understood. But she brings up who do you think that is there?
Right.
When Philip Jeffries sees him. So he's obviously seen something that looks like Cooper before. And, that could explain, that he's mistrustful of Cooper because he only knows doppelganger Cooper. He doesn't know real Cooper.
Right.
So is that his way of warning them, keep your eye on this guy because something bad's gonna happen?
Well, that was the kind of, the hint that Philip Jeffries traveled in time.
Right.
Because he asked, what year is this? Or he's kind of surprised by the year.
Well, he's very disoriented and he has no idea.
Yeah.
He seems to be very deliberately walking into Gordon Cole's office, but then when he gets there, he kind of looks around like, how did I get here?
Right.
So he has these moments of
clarity.
Knowing he has to do so. Not even clarity, but when you have those moments where you think, okay, this is what I need to do right now, and I don't quite know why I need to do it, but I'm laser focused on that.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened to Philip Jeffries. He's like walking really deliberately into that office.
Yeah, because he basically walks straight. He streaks out of that elevator like he's he's walking right in.
He's like bat out of hell coming out of that elevator.
Yeah, like the nurse walking down to pick up Ferris Bueller's girlfriend.
Florence Sparrow notified Sloane. Poor little lamb.
Exactly.
I love that her name is Florence Sparrow.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, Sparrow. Yeah, exactly.
Like it can't be, Nightingale, but she's Florence Sparrow. That cracks me up.
Yep. Okay, so there's that. We move on to today.
Here's where it gets weird.
Yeah, weirder. A few weeks into her investigation in Twin Peaks, Tammy writes about a bizarre situation that happened that very day while perusing...
Just a few hours ago,
perusing past issues of the Twin Peaks Post, as you do, on microfiche.
I would do that.
Because, hey, it's microfiche.
I peruse past issues of Wrapped in Plastic.
There you go. There you go.
On rainy days.
Yep. You think they'd have those scanned into PDFs by now,
but it's right there on the front page.
Yep.
Laura Palmer did not die.
Yep. So because she looks up Cooper's first disappearance in 1989, after he goes into the Black Lodge, but there's no mention of the murder at all.
So, fairly certain I've not misplaced my own mind, I go back and check the corresponding police records, and they tell me this. Laura Palmer disappeared from Twin Peaks without a trace on the very same night when, in the world we thought we knew, it used to be said she died, but the police never found the girl, or if she had been killed elsewhere, her body, or made a single arrest. In every subsequent mention, in addition to the post, the case is still listed as open and pending an investigation. So, at the end of the return, like we saw, Pete wakes up in the morning, he goes down to go fishing, and there's nothing on the beach.
Right.
So, Cooper did, in fact, change the course of time. He changed the timeline. Now, from this, there's not much to tell us who else's lives that affected.
Right.
Because
we know that obviously there's going to be ripples throughout.
Right. And she's asking the sheriff's department, and that's what they know. I mean, nobody else remembers anything different. Now, Leland Palmer still died.
Yeah, we find out that a year later, the 1-year anniversary of Laura's disappearance, Leland commits suicide.
Right.
So right there's a major difference in the timeline. Apparently he used a licensed handgun in his car parked near the Great Northern Hotel waterfall.
Right.
Which you have visited.
Which I have visited. It's very beautiful, and it's very high up.
Yep.
So.
But I would think it'd be worth the climb.
Oh, it's definitely worth the climb. It's about 1,000-foot hike down to the bottom, but it's definitely worth the climb to do it. It's very beautiful.
I would totally do it.
So, who does that leave us with in the Palmer family?
Yeah, so, we find out also that there were 3 visits to the Palmer house that year, all by Harry, but there's no details of what went on.
Well, and I'm assuming it probably has to do with cocaine, prostitution, probably wondering, or Laura stayed out all night again. Because again, when a fire like this starts, it is very difficult to put out. So I'm thinking that that's what's going on with that. That there's that they might be calling Harry saying we can't find Laura again.
Right.
But then she shows up drunk at the house or something. I don't know.
Right. Just everything leading up to the point where Cooper takes her out of time and changes the timeline.
Right.
Yeah.
So here...
Because obviously there's a divergence point.
Right. So we now get confirmation of a theory that we had.
Right. Which apparently we were on the money.
We were 100% on the money.
High five.
Yeah. Whoop,
up top.
Up top, down low, too slow. Now, I was wrong about the boy being Leland Palmer.
Right.
But the girl in the poodle skirt on her first date in the little town where the woodsman comes and murders the DJ, and then there's mass hysteria.
Right.
That was Sarah Palmer.
Right. And we find out her full name is Sarah Judith. As in Judy, hello. Novak Palmer.
Yes.
So obviously she's at this point she's just Sarah Judith Novak.
Right.
Who lived in Los Alamos, New Mexico.
And her father was working on the Trinity Project.
Right.
That's why they were there. Yeah. So that was in fact Sarah Palmer.
Right.
So
and that was obviously this is all the stuff that happened in episode 8 of season 3.
Right. Which is still my favorite episode.
The mind-blowing episode and atomic bomb blowing episode.
Yes.
And we also get it tied in with the On August 6, 1956, 11 years after the Trinity test, 15 miles outside of the town where the Novaks lived, 2 employees at a nearby radio station were brutally murdered. Got a light?
Got a light? Included in the account that followed over the next few days, half a dozen sightings of strange, solitary figures in the area that night on the road, with at least 2 placing them in the vicinity of the radio station. Details are sketchy. It was a dark and moonless night. It was a dark and stormy night.
Right.
But they sound like drifters, or as one witness called them, hobos.
Right.
So we know that these are...
And that's the line that Gordon Cole used.
Yes.
So yeah, so we got confirmation that yes, it was the woodsman.
When he was taken into the vortex, onto the stairway, and saw them for himself, he called them hobos.
Right.
So they...
Yep.
And right after the attack happened, the station went off the air, and a lot of people reported hearing strange electrical or mechanical word sounds coming over their radios for the next 6 minutes. During this period, local residents reported severe disturbances among their pets or livestock. A number of others, only a few who were named in the reporting, claimed that members of their family blacked out when they heard these transmissions, which we saw when everybody sort of kind of stopped, and even when Sarah Palmer fell asleep. She just sort of laid down and fell asleep, and that's when that fly frog thing...
Yeah, so basically we finally get the explanation of that whole business that we suspected all along.
Right.
That, she's found upstairs unconscious in her bedroom.
And she came to when they were driving her to the hospital, and there was nothing wrong with her, according to the hospital. And it just looked like another person that had blacked out during these 6 minutes. She was given a quick physical and sent home.
Right.
Because she looked like she was just fine. But
there's no indication that she had some weird bug thing in her stomach, or
right. Nobody would have seen that.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. It should have maybe done an X-ray, but hey.
Now Tammy is, of course, also connecting this to its proximity to Roswell. So
right, because this is like a few hours away from Roswell, where Doug Milford witnessed a UFO crash in 1947, the Roswell crash.
He witnessed the Roswell crash, right?
And then we find out, okay, Sarah went to college in Washington State, and this is where she met Leland, and of course later had Laura. Right.
And after Laura's disappearance, and of course Leland's suicide, she's been going through a severe depression, and she's an alcoholic,
drug abuse,
a pill popper, and just keeps to herself, which we know from the return.
Right.
Now, what makes me curious is, are there still like grocery delivery boys going missing? Like, we never heard anything else about that.
That's true.
So,
we don't know exactly, although, the timeline, we know that we saw Sarah smashing that photo of Laura.
Right, we saw that, and then there's a brief mention of her going into that bar and eating that guy's neck.
Right, yeah, they basically make a mention of that reference, the whole, do you want to F, do you want to F with this? Yeah.
And she takes her face off the same way Laura has taken her face off before. So, and now Tammy is starting to be affected by this change in the time rift. So it seems like, was she still in the air when Cooper did this? And now it's just sort of filtering to her. Was she still flying?
I'm thinking just because of time rippling, that it finally caught up to her.
Because she's saying, I'm glad I'm writing this down, because I'm starting to forget some of the things we already know we know.
Right.
So
yeah, I think it's just that all the changes in time finally catching up to her, because remember, these changes take place in 1989.
Yeah.
So as it ripples through the timeline all the way to 2017.
It's going to take a while to reach her, because like I said, I seriously doubt that, Preston even born when this happened.
Yeah, so apparently she's just she starts freaking out, and she's just like, I got to get out of here. I want to go back to Philadelphia. I'm done. That's it. I'm done.
Right.
And I'm spent.
And and boom goes the dynamite.
Yes.
So she is affected by being in the Blue Rose Task Force, but nowhere near in a dangerous type of a way like Chet Desmond or Dale Cooper or even Wyndham Earle. And we still don't know what happened to Sam.
Nope.
We're still, we know Sam was kind of a little bit of a Chester to Cooper's Spike, so what's the letter about, huh? I mean, we know he met up with Cooper, but, we haven't seen him. Is he still with the FBI? I don't know. I don't know where Sam is.
There's still a number of characters that, haven't been touched on.
Exactly.
So there's plenty of material for more if they want to do it.
Hint, hint, Mark Frost.
Yeah, hint, hint, whatever. So we go to final thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just more of Tammy pontificating here. She asks, is evil in us real? Does staring into this darkness offer up an answer or resolution? Or can the simple, impossible act of persisting to look at what's in front of us finally pierce the darkness and reward us with a glimpse of something eternal beyond?
Is it heaven?
We mustn't give up.
Ever.
Ever. Exactly.
And that's the thing. Does this feeling ever end? Can you come out the other side to some kind of understanding, or do I have to take that as another article of faith?
Yep.
That it just gets weird, kids.
So another way to look at this, though, is that maybe, like, Frost is speaking to us as fans watching the show, going, okay, here's all this darkness we've thrown at you. And, like, watching it, does it, are you going to get some kind of understanding out of this?
I don't want to take another leap of faith. I want another book. I want another scare.
Well, remember, we mustn't give up. Ever.
Now that is promising. I will say that.
Exactly.
Very
so maybe he's telling us, hey, don't give up on wanting more Twin Peaks.
Well, I'll never give up on wanting more Twin Peaks. It's whether or not I give up on expecting more Twin Peaks.
Well, there's that, yes. There's anticipation and there's expectation. Right.
And sometimes when it comes to Twin Peaks, never the twain shall meet.
Right. So right now, this is it.
Yep.
This is all we get at the moment.
This is what we got. This skinny little book is what we got, but it certainly packs a wallop.
It does.
But, Ed and Norma got married. And
we finally got some answers. Like, we finally found out what the hell Joudy is.
We found out what the hell Joudy is, and we learned what happened to some people, for better or for worse. We know what happened to Annie, even though it's horrible and tragic. We at least know.
Right.
So, but Leo died. So
that's a win there. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. Some characters turned out well. Some characters haven't. Some characters, their fates are kind of left up in the air.
Yeah, some people we still aren't sure about. But,
some people we don't even know exactly what the hell happened. Like you mentioned with Sam.
With Sam or Josie.
Or what the hell happened to Chet Desmond? Where did he disappear to?
We still don't know where he is. I'm actually surprised we never saw him in the waiting room or at one of their meetings. Or would he have been a woodsman? I don't know what the heck happened. I mean, he could have been something bizarre, like the concierge at one of the motels that Cooper and Diane were at. They checked into the one and then woke up in another.
Somebody get Chris Isaac's agent on the phone. Right,
or he could have been at Joudy's Cafe. I mean, there were a million places he could have popped up, but he didn't. So I'm wondering what the heck happened to him.
Yeah. Now, obviously, my rating.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it a 9 last time, so of course I'm going to give it a 9 this time. So I give it 9 out of 10 Lovecraftian 3D printers.
Lovecraftian 3D printers.
I just love that phrasing.
That is a pretty good one. Yes. I'm sticking with my 9.
Okay.
Most definitely. I'm sticking with 9 declarations of being fine.
That's very sad, but yeah.
That's the thing. It's like I said, it was the one thing.
Right.
And
I like how you connected that to the how's Annie question.
that's the thing. She's answering the question that he asked
Right.
when he got out.
How's
of it.
Annie?
And
How's Annie? Yeah.
she's fine.
I'm
I
fine.
mean, that she's as fine as she's going to be, and unfortunately, and that is really tragic and really depressing. But that's what we.
But is she fine, or is that the female expression of "I'm fine" when something's really not fine? As I know from being married for 20 years.
And if a woman says everything's fine,
it's not fine.
If that's wrong, everything's wrong.
It's not even close to fine.
Something isn't funny, you better not laugh your ass off.
Right. It's not even close to fine.
Well, I don't even know if it's that or if it's just dismissive to try and keep him away from her.
Right.
You know, just that I'm fine. You can go now. Get out. Go away.
Or here's a really dark way to take it, because I'm so good at that.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's somebody like whatever forces that have Annie inside the lodge?
Yeah.
Speaking through her, basically to like, okay, don't worry, everybody. I'm fine, when in fact she's far from fine.
That's probably exactly what it is, because we know from Cooper, you know, it struck me as funny and I need to brush my teeth. These entities don't necessarily know how humans operate. So they seem to say things that kind of make sense in the moment, but are just sort of really banal statements.
Well, like, they try to, like, assuage everybody's fears.
Right, it just struck me as funny, so now I have to brush my teeth. So again, go away and leave me alone.
Or like Doppelganger Cooper when he's being interrogated in the prison. When he's trying to say, like, you know, like, you know, that, like, I am being well treated or whatever, you know.
Right. What was the thing that he said backwards?
Iriv, very
Iriv, happy to see you.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, even with, I even said that when Diane was there and he said, I knew it was going to be you before the partition was even open.
Right.
Did he really know, or did he just know it was going to be somebody important to Cooper, so that would be a good thing to say?
I think he was just saying that to unsettle her.
I think he was too, and I think he would have said that to unsettle anybody, Diane or not.
He's just being manipulative.
And Diane is another one who was such a good fighter. You know, she was really fighting what was inside of her that wanted her to kill Gordon and that wanted her to get the coordinates for Doppelganger Cooper. She fought pretty valiantly.
Right.
So, and that's another, where the hell is Diane?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would love to know where Diane is. You know, she had miserable sex with Agent Cooper and then disappeared. I mean, it's not fair.
Yeah.
So,
if that was Diane that had sex with Cooper, it wasn't a swap.
Well, did it have red hair?
That's true.
So that's
because remember, Diane saw herself.
Yeah, so
was Diane swapped?
And the problem with that was Diane, looking at Diane, neither one of them looked particularly
happy about
seeing the other one. It wasn't like there was one who expected to see the other one.
Right.
Or
she wasn't shocked.
They weren't shocked, but they were both unsettled. Like, what are you doing here?
Right.
So, yeah, that was a weird thing.
Unless that was just from Diane from a different timeline.
Well,
and now I've gone cross-eyed.
Oh my God! But the thing is that what caused the timeline? Well, no, had they gone to the motel before or after Cooper led Laura through the woods and made her stop before meeting up with Leo, Jacques, and Ronette. It was after, wasn't it?
That's what I thought.
It was after, so that could have already started the ripple.
Right.
So, Diane.
Well, I think that's where the ripple started. Is that that's Laura doesn't make it to that meeting with Jacques and Leo
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Ronette, and that's where the timeline diverges.
That's where it starts. That's where it starts rippling.
That's
and
where
I
it
think
fractures, yeah.
I think it does. I think you're right. I think the ripple takes time. I don't think it's an immediate, like, wham, everything's different, where
Right.
you just sort of come out of something and all of a sudden you live in another country, which we've seen in time travel stories before. So
Right. It's just the way Twin Peaks is presenting this. And
Twin Peaks has gone all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
pretty much.
And so, it could be anything. But again, yeah, where's
But,
Diane?
hey, next stop everywhere.
So when you're done listening to us, kids,
Exactly.
go over to Next Up Everywhere.
Yep.
And where's Ronette? You know, what happened to Ronette?
Yep. How's Ronette? I'm fine.
Well, that's the thing, is if, I seriously doubt that, like I said this at the time when we saw the episode, I don't think Leland would have followed them into the woods if it was just Ronette.
No.
But, did Ronette escape? I mean, what happened to Laura actually helped Ronette a lot, helped her escape that seedy life of Jacques Renault and Flesh World.
Well, if Laura wasn't there, how did Ronette escape the train car?
They probably never got taken to the train car. She was probably in the cabin all night with Jacques and Leo.
Yeah.
And
I'm hearing some microphone stuff.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah.
She probably never made it to the train car, because remember, Leland followed them to the cabin.
Yeah.
Pulled them out of the cabin and then took them to the train car. So if there was no Leland, there was no way to get, so she didn't have to escape. Probably what happened is she got out of her mind, wasted on cocaine, had sex with those two guys and whoever else they brought for her to be a prostitute for. Came back the next day, went to school like nothing was happening, and then went to her after school job at the perfume counter. Still, just more damaged of a young girl than she was before. But
yeah, obviously never. Yeah, she never crawled off the train tracks.
No. None
of that happened.
No, there would have never been a reason for her to go there.
Right.
Because the person that took her there was Leland, and if there was no Laura for Leland to follow, Leland doesn't care about Ronette.
No.
I mean, not that he wouldn't care if he knew her. He just doesn't know who she is. He doesn't even know that Laura knows her. They're not friends outside of school. They work together, but that's about it. So.
And with Laura disappearing.
Right.
Yeah, there was no reason for him to keep watching them.
That's right. That's the thing.
Well, after he was convinced, probably like he might have watched them for a little bit, wondering if Laura would show up. But I would think after a while.
Right, and
because obviously he knew enough to go there to follow them to the train car.
No, he took them to the train car. He followed them to the cabin, to Jacques' cabin.
Right.
So,
But here's what I'm wondering though, because Leland has Bob inside him at this point.
Right.
So,
but Bob's not interested in anybody but Laura.
Right. So if Laura's not there.
I just wonder if Leland just went home. Did he go to the cabin and only see 3 people there? One of them not one of them being Laura.
Right.
Did he just leave?
That's what I'm
Or
thinking.
did he do something else that night? I mean, what? Or did Leland just wake up from having Bob controlling him in the middle of the woods?
And now I want to know that story.
Right, because it's very possible that he woke up in the middle of the woods at Jacques Renault's cabin, looking in the window, sees Ronette, who he knows is a prostitute, with Laura, because he saw her on the bed with Laura when he was supposed to be hooking up with them and Teresa Banks.
Right.
So he probably was like, oh my God, it's that other girl. I got to get the hell out of here.
Right.
So, he probably would have freaked out, went back home, and probably nothing ever would have come of it.
Yep. I think you're right.
So, yeah, again.
And then we know that a year later he commits suicide. Presumably Bob got tired of him and is like, okay, I'm ready to move on now.
I'm assuming that his suicide was Bob instigated for sure.
Yeah.
Because once Bob realized that Laura's gone and Leland is not a good conduit to locate her.
Right.
That's when he was like, I'm done with this. It's like To bring in another Kyle MacLachlan vehicle, have you ever seen The Hidden?
Right.
Where it's this alien force that comes in and takes over human bodies and basically uses them until they're not able to be used anymore because they've been shot by police or been in car accidents or something like that. Just uses the bodies until the bodies can't function anymore.
Right.
And that's probably what happened with Bob.
Probably.
And again, Leland's not strong enough to fight Bob off, so Bob probably either Bob killed him by controlling him, or Bob drove him to kill himself just to make it stop.
Probably.
Either way, it's horribly tragic.
Okay, so here we are, about 2 hours, 20 minutes into this. We've really run long, but we finished it up at least, finally.
We finished this book.
We finished this book. We could have easily broken this out to a third segment.
This book is like not even 200 pages long.
I know, but it obviously gives us a lot to talk about and speculate about, especially once we start getting into the alternate timeline.
Exactly.
And the ramifications of that. So,
good gravy.
So the question is now, next time on Ghostwood, I presume we're going to talk about the limited event series Blu-ray that you finally got from Amazon.
That finally came in the mail. Yes.
So presumably we're going to talk about that next, unless you want to talk about something else.
We can talk about that, or we can go back to the books and do tapes of Dale Cooper. It's up to you.
I'm leaving it up to you.
Whatever
you're in the mood for.
Let's finish out all of our new stuff, and then we can go back and start.
Okay, that sounds good.
So
because we only have really the Blu-ray set. That's the last of our new stuff.
That's the last of our new stuff. For now.
Now, yeah. Fingers crossed.
Mark Frost, David Lynch, come on.
Yep.
Do it because you love us.
Come on.
Come on.
You can do it. Just one more.
I just see Laura. Come on, Bob.
One more season. Yeah. Exactly. As we smile creepily up at the ceiling fan.
As we're walking down the street and we're trying not to smile.
Very nice.
Because the street is where I'm going. And the yell could last forever.
And there was a howl. All right. So, Zan, where on the interwebs can they find you in the meantime when we return in between now and the 2 weeks that we come back to talk about the limited event series?
I can be located on Facebook as Zan Sprouse.
Yes.
And I can be located on Twitter or Instagram as Udinax19.
Yes, yes.
Udinax, by the way, again, is Xanadu spelled backwards.
Right.
What about you, Charles?
Of course, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram, Google Plus for all you crazy kids on the Google Plus, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the Ghostwood, Twin Peaks stuff that we talk about here on Ghostwood, and my other two podcasts that I do for the Southgate Media Group, the Fandom Zone podcast, where I talk about comic books on TV, and Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, where I talk about all things Doctor Who, and a certain other podcast that we're going to be starting up rather soon. Because 3 podcasts are enough. I got to tack on another one, but
you got to do another one.
We got to do another one. This is a personal pet project of Jesse and I.
Oh, nice. What are you guys doing?
We are going to be talking about the upcoming Titans TV series for DC's digital direct service.
Okay, yes, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be called Titan Talk because once upon a time we belonged to an amateur press association called Titan Talk, where we did all kinds of Titans fan fiction and zines back in the day. You know, nowadays it'd be called blogs, but back in the day on paper, they were called zines.
Back when you could have blogs on paper.
Yeah, we did things with staples and copies and whatnot. Speaking of Kinko's,
figure out how to collate those pages. That was always hard.
Yeah, no Lovecraftian 3D printers though. But so we put those together, and we've been friends ever since, and we swore that if that Titans TV series ever got off the ground, which it looks like it is, we would do Resurrect Titan Talk as a podcast.
You guys are just keeping it real with the Titan Talk, eh?
Yes, we are. So
that'll be awesome.
So all kinds of old school Titans goodness and Teen Titans goodness, and all the way through the modern day. So we're going to be talking about that. We're launching that very soon. We recorded our first episode, so stay tuned. We'll get all the goodness out. But thanks to everybody who's been listening to Ghostwood on Southgate Media Group.
Which is also on Facebook, by the way, Southgate Media Group, if you want to take a look around and see what other geeky offerings we have for you.
Exactly. You can go to southgatemediagroup.com. But as far as Ghostwood, you can reach us on the Twitter machine at GhostwoodCast, or email us. We would love to hear from you. Let us know your theories about this alternate timeline, because damn, we got lots of playground here to cover.
Seriously.
You can reach us at ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach us on the Facebook at Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks Podcast.
Yep, that's where we are.
So
you can
please
find
please like us and follow us there. We definitely appreciate it. And please rate us on iTunes if you're so inclined.
Rate us and subscribe, even if Yep. Even if you don't listen, you gotta delete us for your memory problems.
Exactly.
On your phone. Just subscribe to us, because we're there for you when you need your Twin Peaks geekery.
Exactly, and it's all great to have them on your little iTunes and Google Play and all kinds of stuff. So. And
I personally, Charles, I think we're nice to drive to.
I think so. You know that firsthand because you listen to us in the car.
I do. I listen to us in the car.
Does Chris listen to us? Has he listened to us?
He's been trying to a little bit more now that he has actually watched some Twin Peaks.
Right.
But back when he didn't really know much about the Twin Peaks universe, he just sort of heard us talking. He didn't hear what we were saying. Same thing with my mother. I say, "So are you listening?" She's like, "I've tried, honey. I have no idea what you're saying."
Well, we are the advanced class. I will give us that. But
we are kind of the advanced class of Twin Peaks.
So if you understand what the hell we're talking about, tell us, because we have no idea what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Please let us know what we mean.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
So that's another thing. We do sort of assume that this is going to be for the Twin Peaks fan rather than the Twin Peaks novice, which again was the downfall of Fire Walk with Me, which we are putting right up front that we are not a Fire Walk with Me. We are a Fire Walk with Me. You are not going to listen to us and understand Twin Peaks.
If we're going way too advanced, let us know. But
right.
But I like to think that a lot of you out there are pretty, you're smart. You've watched the same stuff we have, read the same stuff we have, at least a lot of it. And so,
if you haven't read it, we do. We are talking about things that are still available, that are in print, that are new. So, and if you want to know where we found our theories, where we figured that stuff out, then let us know, and we'll tell you. Well, back in '93 when I was home from school, or back in '95 when I was in college and watching the reruns on Bravo again.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Bravo repeats. Yes.
Right, with the Log Lady introductions.
Yes. Yep. I had lots of fun watching those every week. That was
a good time.
That was good times. With the lights off, of course.
Bravo was so much better before there were Real Housewives.
Turn off your lights.
Lock your doors, bolt your windows, and turn off your lights.
Exactly. All right. So, obviously, you've listened to us talk a lot, so we're going to say goodbye for now. But we'll be back in 2 weeks as we talk about the limited event series, a.k.a. Season 3 set.
Mm-hmm. The Blu-ray release.
The Blu-ray release that we both finally have.
Yay!
And now we can watch all the extras and stuff and talk about that. And hopefully we'll get some more insights as well. So, everybody, thank you again for listening, and we will see you next time right here on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Bye, everybody.